What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the KBR Show. This is yours truly, King Buddy, right here. Happy Friday. Happy end of the week, or if you are like some people and work a 4-day job, happy weekend to you. And if you work weekends, I apologize, but hope work goes well for you. But welcome back to another episode on this wonderful Friday afternoon. It is a little chilly, very windy out today, so if you go outside, bundle up, wear a coat, wear a jacket, wear some thick socks if you have cold feet like I do. But what are we going to get into today? We're going to recap the sports from Wednesday and Thursday. We're going to recap some trade deadline stuff. I'm going to make a Super Bowl score pick real quick, and we'll talk about some local stuff and look into the weekend, and obviously positive thought and a Bible verse as always. We will start with the Super Bowl. It is coming up on Sunday. Lots of things happening in the Super Bowl, other than just football, of course. Always good commercials. Pay millions of dollars for these things. I am shocked like people like Doritos and Coca-Cola and these other big time companies pay those, because it does not influence me to eat more Doritos. It does not influence me to drink more Coke. I am a Dr. Pepper fan. I have a Dr. Pepper right here in this cup. But they spend millions on commercials, but they are good commercials. I'm not gonna lie. You have Bad Bunny in the halftime concert. Do not come at me. I'm not trying to push Bad Bunny. He does produce good music, though. But you have the commercials, you have the halftime show, and then you have the game itself. Should be a fun one. My pick for the Super Bowl, obviously I made that on the last podcast, was the Seahawks, and Sam Darnold's going to go off for 350 plus yards. That was my pick there. But my pick for the score, Seahawks 37, New England Patriots 31. I think it's going to come down to either one of two things: a late score by the Seahawks and they win, or a late defensive stop, special teams play by the Seahawks and they win. So it should be a very fun one. First year head coaches, Mike McDonald and Mike Vrabel. Sam Darnold and his little revenge tour after being cut by the Vikings last year. Or not cut, traded. And then second year quarterback out of North Carolina, Tar Heels, baby. And Drake May. Should be a fun one. We'll do a full podcast on Monday of the recap of the Super Bowl and final thoughts and thoughts going into the offseason there. Now, back to the hardwood, the NBA floor. Their trade deadline ended yesterday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Lots of trades happened. A shocking one early on in the week with Harden going to the Cavs. But two big trades that a lot of people thought were going to go down that didn't go down. I called one of them. I didn't think the other one wasn't going to happen. But I saw Giannis not going anywhere because of I don't think teams wanted to take it on his injury. I don't think they offered enough to the Bucks. There's obviously teams that made offers, but I don't think teams wanted to offer more because of his injury proneness. That's just my opinion. And then the other one that didn't happen that I thought was going to happen was Ja Morant. Maybe the same thing there. He is injured currently as well. He did not get moved there. Obviously, we had the big trade with Darius Garland going to LA, James Harden coming to Cleveland, and the Cavaliers. Talked about how that's a high risk, high reward for the Cavs. I think it's going to pay off. Another big move in LA done by the Clippers as well. They traded big man Ivica Zubac to the Indiana Pacers for Benedict Mathurin and some picks. But the key thing here, the Pacers continue to be on this awful past season that they're on currently because they are very injury right now. Tyrese Halliburton's out. Obviously, they didn't have Miles Turner. Now they got Zubac. They got a true big guy again. But that pick that they traded could end up being a top 5 draft pick in LA and could set them up for the future. So very interested to see how that goes. The Knicks did pull off the Giannis train late, but they did go after Jose Alvarado, big defensive guy, very up in your face, up in your grill, very intensity guard. Jose Alvarado from the New Orleans Pelicans there. And they also got Dalen Terry from the Chicago Bulls. I think that's a big-time get. It fits their game. It makes them even deeper than what they already are. He will fit in well with people like Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Landry Shamet off the bench. I think that intensifies their defense even more than what it already is currently. Mike Conley got traded early. He got traded to the Bulls, and then he got traded again to the Hornets. Then he got cut by the Hornets, and rumor has it from Shams Charania of ESPN that he's going to be back in Minnesota by next week. So it's very interesting how that's going to work, and if that ends up happening, it probably will. No, he's old. No one else is probably going to take that chance. Obviously, Minnesota liked him, but should be very interesting there. The other team in LA, the Los Angeles Lakers, trade away guard Gabe Vincent to the Grizzlies for sharpshooter Luke Kennard, which I will think plays big dividends for a spot-up shooter for Luka, Austin Reeves, and LeBron James to pass to. Is it enough to get them over that hump? No, because he's not a defender. I think the Lakers needed to make a play on defense, and they did not, but he is a good shooter. He's one of the best shooters in the league right now behind Curry and a couple others. He's probably a top 5 shooter in the league right now. Speaking of Curry and the Warriors, they did make a trade. Trade I would not have made personally, but they traded away Buddy Hield and Jonathan Kuminga to the Hawks for Kristaps Porzingis. The Warriors get a big man. Is he a stable big man? I don't think so. But Steve Kerr didn't really play Buddy Hield and Jonathan Kuminga much this year, so maybe that's a good trade for the Warriors. Gets off some draft picks, but it's crazy to look back. And you had, for the Warriors, you had Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman, and Jordan Poole back in 2022. Jordan Poole's now with the Pelicans after getting punched in the face and getting traded to Washington, then Washington traded to New Orleans. And then you got James Wiseman, who was a big old wash waste, almost as bad as Jamarcus Russell was in the NFL. Moses Moody's still there, and Kuminga has gotten traded. I think Kuminga's good. I'm not a Steve Kerr agreeer with that, but we'll see what happens in Atlanta. Kuminga, I hope for your sake you end up doing well. Lots of trades has happened. Lots of new faces and new places. Should be an interesting into the regular season, into the playoffs. All-Star Weekend is next weekend. My winners and losers and final thoughts of the NBA trade deadline. I think your winners are both in the East. I think your winners are the New York Knicks and getting Jose Alvarado, adding depth to their bench and defense to their bench. And I also think your winner is the Cavs. You dipped off a big contract in Darius Garland. He's been injured most of the year. You get a stable guy who can score and get a bucket and can shoot and spread the floor a little bit for Donovan Mitchell and James Harden. Is it a risk on the defensive end? Yes, but you've got 2 rim protectors in the back behind him with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So I think the risk versus reward there plays in favor of the reward. I think those are your winners. I think your losers, 2 of them come from the East and 1 comes from the West. I think your Warriors are a loser here. You didn't go after anybody big. You didn't land Giannis. You didn't land John Morant, any of the big guys. The Bucks, you didn't get rid of Giannis. Now Giannis has all control over you and says, I want to go here. And that's what he can do in the offseason. And you guys want to tank for a top draft pick, and he can say, no, I want to play. So they're going to butt heads. I think that ends up being a big loss there. I think for the Warriors, they didn't end up getting anything to take them over the top and be a top contender in the East. And for the Grizzlies, same thing as the Bucks, John Morant. You didn't get rid of him, and he wants out. So I think your losers here are the Bucks from Milwaukee, the Golden State Warriors, and the Memphis Grizzlies. Your winners are your New York Knicks and Cleveland Cavaliers. And then mid-tier action, kind of see how it plays out, see how the draft goes, is Utah Jazz. I think they're set up for the future. I don't know how that's going to work and how that's going to play out, but it could play big for the Jazz. We should see. But I think immediate winner, Cavs from Cleveland and the New York Knicks should be good. Now to the actual hardwood action on the floor. Takes us back to Wednesday night. New York Knicks welcomed in the Nuggets from Denver. And it was a dandy, or as Dick Vitale would say, a diaper dandy, baby. It was a big one. It was a two overtime game. 2 overtime frames to settle the winner. Would the Knicks win their 8th straight, or would the Nuggets lose their 4th straight? First 48 minutes was not enough. The next 5 minutes in the first overtime were not enough either. And both teams had a chance in overtime and in regulation to win. The Nuggets missed their shots, and the Knicks missed their shots as well to take the lead in perspective frames. But the second overtime, the Nuggets just wore down, got tired. Jokic didn't have his legs. He was supposed to be in a 25-minute to 30-minute restriction. He ended up playing 45 minutes, but he did say pregame if he's needed to be in there to win the game, he will play more than what he's supposed to. And he stuck true to his word, and he did play. But the Nuggets fell short, 134 to 127 in New York, but it was still a good one. Speaking of Denver, Jokic had 30 points, 14 boards, and 10 assists, so a triple-double in 45 minutes of action, but was only 1 of 13 from deep, a lot of those being in the final minutes of regulation and in both overtimes. And you saw him, his legs were just weak, man. Like, he couldn't get any lift from his knees and from his legs there. But he did drop a triple-double. Jamal Murray also contributed 39 points. Tim Hardaway Jr. had a decent game on defense and had 19 points as well. The Knicks, and this is why the pickup is big, they get to add to this balance. They had 6 players in double figures, led by Jalen Brunson with 42 points. Karl Anthony Towns had 24 points. OG Anunoby had a double-digit night as well. I think he had 12. But he was big on the defensive end. He got the assignment in both overtimes to guard Jamal Murray, and it held dividends there. Mitchell Robinson, also same thing, was playing defense on Nikola Jokic late, also big on the defensive end. The second game on Wednesday night was supposed to be a big one. Thunder versus the Spurs, 2 top teams in the East. The Spurs have kind of owned the Thunder. They'd continue to own them tonight, but the Thunder's top 8 players were out. All 5 starters were out. They had to call up a few guys from the G League to be able to put a team on the floor. They only had 8 players to able to play. The Spurs ended up winning that one, 116-106. Wasn't really much of a game. The Spurs weren't really trying too hard, and the Thunder were just trying to put a team on the floor. But the Spurs won that one, 116-106. Again, not much of a game there. The Cleveland Cavaliers, speaking of the Harden trade, were in Los Angeles to take on the Clippers on Wednesday evening. James Harden did not play in this game, but the Cavs did come out on top, 124-91, extending the losing streak for the Clippers to 5 after their hot streak since Christmas. They're on a downfall now, and they traded away Harden and Zubac, so that's probably only going to continue there. A free plane ride back to Cleveland instead of hiring, probably saves the Cavs some money, instead of hiring a private jet to take James Harden from LA to Cleveland to join the team. Just hop on the team plane, man. We're in LA. That's probably what happened. I don't know that for a fact, but if I was Cleveland, that's what I would make happen. Saves you a couple $1,000, or by a couple, I mean probably like 20. But it doesn't really matter. There. Takes us to Thursday. Spurs back in action on another back-to-back night. Did not stop them. They traveled to Dallas and beat Dallas 135-123. Victor Wembanyama, the Frenchman, led the way with 29 points. Very balanced scoring night for that night in Dallas for San Antonio. They had 7 players in double figures, but Mr. Rookie sensation himself from Duke, Mr. Cooper Flagg, had another stellar night on the floor with 32 points. Najee Marshall, also for the Mavs, had 32 points. The problem in that game for the Mavericks was no bench help. They only had 15 total bench points and not many bench minutes. They didn't really have much of a bench that night. So the Spurs won back-to-back nights earlier this week. The Lakers, no Luka, no problem. Beats the 76ers 119-116, led by Austin Rivers off the bench in 25 minutes, had 35 points. LeBron James had 17 points and 10 assists, so he had a double-double there. The Rockets, they dropped their second in a row, a back to back. They lost on Wednesday to the Boston Celtics, and then they lose another one on Thursday night to the Charlotte Hornets, 109-99. The Hornets beat them, so the Rockets have dropped 2 in a row. Now to college basketball. On Wednesday evening, we had Houston takes care of business at home against UCF, 79-59. So Houston remains on their little win streak that they're on. Top 10 goes down. The Michigan State Spartans travel to Minnesota on Wednesday evening and lose 76-73. Very big time game there. Very big win by the Golden Gophers. One of my favorite mascot names. I don't know why. I just like saying it, I guess, is what I'm thinking. This is the Golden Gophers beat the Michigan State Spartans. Another big upset late in the evening on the West Coast. Gonzaga Bulldogs lose to Portland 87-80. Another matchup for a top 5 opponent, Illinois. They smack Northwestern at home 84-44. No upset there. Number 2 team in all the land, the Michigan Wolverines, remain hot and win big at home against Penn State 110-69 on Wednesday. Now let's transition to women's college basketball. Big time game for Michigan State at home against Maryland, but Michigan State falls to the lower seeded Maryland. Michigan State was number 12 and Maryland's number 22. Maryland wins 86-70. Big win there for the Terrapins in Michigan State. Number 1, UConn Huskies, best team in all the land. One of the best coaches of all time across all sports. Gina Auriemma and the UConn Husky women win 86-40 against DePaul. The number 2 team in all the land, who hasn't lost since the 3rd game of the year back in November against Oklahoma Sooners, the UCLA Bruins, rolled at home against Rutgers 86-46. That takes us to last night on the women's hardwood. 2 big-time matchups, 2 top 15 matchups here. Very big, both in the SEC showdowns. We'll start with number 7, Vandy, against number 15, Kentucky in Kentucky. Vanderbilt goes in and knocks them off 84-83. Kentucky had a chance late. They were down by 3 to tie the game. They missed the 3, get the putback. There was only like 0.2 seconds left. They could not do enough to get the win. So the Vanderbilt Commodores remain hot and beat the Kentucky Wildcats in Lexington 84-83. That takes us to a top 5 matchup down in Texas for the Longhorns. They welcome in Kim Mulkey and the LSU Tigers. You have 2 very different play styles in this game. You have the flashy and the high-powered offense of Kim Mulkey and the LSU Tigers versus a more slower pace, half-court, up-in-your-face defense and the Texas Longhorns and Vic Schaefer. The Longhorns would have come away with a double-digit victory, 77-64 against Kim Mulkey and the Tigers. Now we're going to look ahead to action this weekend on the hardwood. For the women, a top 10 matchup on Sunday, UCLA versus Michigan. Top 20 matchup, big one in the SEC. Number 19, Tennessee Volunteer, and the Lady Volunteers travel to South Carolina and take on the South Carolina Gamecocks and Don Stanley's squad. For the men, they do have one game tonight. The number 3 ranked team, UConn Huskies, and Dan Hurley visit St. John's tomorrow. Lots of big action in college basketball. Big day for college basketball. We'll get to the game of the day in a minute, but first UVA welcomes in Syracuse and the Orange over in Charlottesville. Illinois travels to Michigan State. That's a top 10 matchup. Number 10, Michigan State versus number 5, Illinois. Should be a good one. One of the remaining unbeatens, Miami of Ohio, travels to Huntington, West Virginia to take on Marshall. Then Gonzaga tries to not lose 2 in a row. They will play Oregon State at Oregon State. The defending champs, the Florida Gators, will travel to Texas A&M to play the Aggies. Late night. Big time game after the game of the week will be number 8 Houston at number 16 BYU. Should be a good one. Battle of AJ Batanza and the Houston team. Should be a fun one there. Very big defensive battle, most likely in that game. Now, that takes us to the game of the week and the game of the weekend. One of the best rivalries in all of sports. College game day will be there. Best rivalry in all sports, in my opinion. Battle of the Freshmen. Who wins? Primetime, 6:30 on ESPN. College game day. Jay Billis, Jay Williams, Seth Greenberg, and the boys will be there. UNC leads the all-time series. Excuse me. 145 to 117. The last 100 have belonged to Duke in favor of 54 to 46, but it's always a good game. Even better when both teams are ranked. You got UNC coming in at number 14 and Duke coming in at number 4. You got Cameron Boozer, Caden Boozer, Isaiah Evans and the crew versus Caleb Wilson, Henry Vassar, Seth Trimble, and the boys. Should be a fun one. It is at North Carolina. It is at the Dean Dome in North Carolina, but Duke's only 8 miles away. And it is 8 miles, but it takes like 45 minutes because of traffic. I have been to both stadiums in the same day. So it is a very small 8 miles, but it's not an 8 miles like you're thinking here locally for the difference between Bridgewater and Harrisonburg. Like Bridgewater College and EMU. Or let's look how far they are apart. I live a quarter mile from Bridgewater College. So let's see how far Eastern Mennonite is. Eastern Mennonite's 8.1 miles. So almost the same exact distance as Duke in North Carolina. And we all know that does not take 45 minutes. It takes like 15 to 20, depending on how fast you drive. And rush hour, obviously. But, or what we call rush hour around here. But should be a fun one. Nonetheless, the Duke Blue Devils versus the North Carolina Tar Heels should be a fun one. Will be watching. I will be wearing all Carolina blue that evening. So should be a fun one at the Dean Dome. Should be a fun one. But nonetheless, very, very busy day in college basketball on Saturday. Lots of top matchups. Lots of trap games for some teams. Very fun. Some standings will be shaken from earlier contests during the week. You had a lot of top 10s go down. You may have even more go down this weekend. Should be fun. Now we're going to transition back to the NBA. On Friday in the NBA, Boston will travel or will welcome in the Miami Heat. The big time matchup tonight, 7:30 on Amazon Prime. Detroit versus the Knicks. Detroit Pistons welcome in the New York Knicks. That's at 7:30 on Amazon Prime. Should be a fun one. And then your late night game will be two teams that really don't really have much to play for after the way they treated the trade deadline. The Los Angeles Clippers and the Sacramento Kings. Saturday we have the Rockets, who hopefully don't want to lose their third game against the Oklahoma City Thunder at 3:30 on ABC. We got the Mavs and the Spurs playing again, but this time in San Antonio. We have the late night action. The Golden State Warriors will be in Los Angeles to take on the Lakers. And then on Sunday, you will have the New York Knicks in Boston to take on the Celtics. Also, don't forget tonight, the opening ceremony of the Olympics. The Olympics are in full swing. I've been paying attention. It's on my monitor over here that you cannot see. And I've been paying attention to it, watching some curling today. One of my favorite things to watch is that and the bobsled, because you don't get to watch it other than every 4 years. Like, you can watch skiing every year at the X Games. You can watch or it's not winter time, but you can watch football, you can watch basketball, you can watch those things all year around. But the curling and the bobsledding, it's only really watchable during the Olympics. So don't forget, the opening ceremony of that is tonight. For local sports, we had a big time showdown in the Bull Run on Wednesday. We had Central Falcons traveling to Luray to play the Bulldogs in a battle of top teams in the Bull Run. The Falcons came in undefeated in the district, but the Bulldogs took them down. Matthew Owens and the squad down in Luray beat the Falcons 52-44. Matthew Owens is a JMU commit to play for the Dukes next season. Tonight, Luray will play at home against Strasburg for the battle of second place against the Strasburg Rams. Should be fun. More local stuff happening this evening and tomorrow. The TA boys will battle Rocktown for the Battle of the Valley District's second place against the Rocktown Raptors. TA just beat the number 1 seed in the Valley District, handing them their first loss in the district earlier this week, Tuesday, against the East Rockingham Eagles. So should be a fun one there. We got Harrisonburg High School and Broadway playing each other tonight. And you got Spotswood tomorrow. All 4 teams, both JV and varsity boys and girls, traveling to EC Glass. So lots of things happening locally. Lots of things on TV, the Olympics. It's going to be cold this weekend. Let's look at the weather. You got a massive wind chill coming. It's currently 33 outside, but you've got a high of 26 tomorrow, a high of 26 on Sunday. So stay inside, stay warm. Drink yourself a hot cup of coffee, hot chocolate, hot tea, or cold tea if you're like me. Enjoy some Olympics. Enjoy some basketball. If you do go out, there's plenty of basketball on this evening in the Valley District and in the Bull Run, and just in the Valley in general. So it should be a very fun sports weekend if you're into that. Now today in history, in 1865, on February 7th, in 1865, General Robert E. Lee appointed General of the Chief of the Civil War. So that is a cool thing in history. And then in sports, it is Babe Ruth's birthday. So, great Bambino, happy birthday to you, sir. And then in honor of the Olympics, the 12th Olympics was played in 1936 on this day, started in Germany. In 1936, it was the 12th Winter Olympics, and it has continued. Also in sports, in 1926, and this is going to be a good one, because especially where we are now with these rules, the NFL made a rule for college players. They could not come to the NFL until they did one thing and one thing only: finish their 4-year degree. They could not come play in the NFL until they finished their 4-year degree. That was made on February 7th of 1926. Now that's funny, because you look at it today and that's not a thing. At all. At all. It used to be you could come straight from college. In a lot of sports now, you at least got to go to college or some sort of something. So, good job there. I think we should go back to that. I'm not a fan of the NIL. We'll discuss that at a later date. But it's funny to look back on history and kind of look what it was back 100 years ago. Now, to close out, as always, our positive thought and Bible verse, we will start with our positive thought. Author again unknown. Eventually, all things fall into place. Until then, laugh at the confusion, live for the moments, and know everything happens for a reason. Again, I'll repeat it. Eventually, all things fall into place. Until then, laugh at the confusion, live for the moments, and know everything happens for a reason. Very powerful quote. All things will work out as they should. Laugh at the funny things now. Laugh at the confusing things. Confusing things won't happen. Don't worry about them. Don't give up. It will all be okay, because all things happen as they should, and all things happen for a reason. Keep going. Keep living life. Things will work out as they should. Believe in yourself. Believe in you. I believe in you. Keep going. Keep thriving. And don't give up. The verse of the day comes from Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him and who have been called according to His purpose. Again, Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. God's telling us here He's always active. He's always present in our lives. He explains the definition of good. It may not always be good in our eyes, but it's always good in God's eyes and on what He intended. So always remember to trust in God even through the trials and tribulations. He's there. Sometimes He's just testing us. So always trust in Him. All things work out the way they should and as they should. So trust in God. All things will work out. Have faith. Thank you for tuning in today. We'll be back on Monday for another episode. We'll do a full recap of the Super Bowl. We'll look towards the NFL offseason and make some predictions there. We'll recap a busy sports weekend and another positive thought and Bible verse of the day. But as always, thank you for tuning into another episode of the KBR Show on this wonderful Friday. Have a blessed weekend. Stay warm. Stay inside. If you go outside, make sure you bundle up so you don't catch a cold, please. Thank you again. I've enjoyed doing these. I'm going to continue to enjoy to do these. Until next time, as always, go Bucks.